Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that we have a guest because it's a crossover episode with Javi Reyes of Locked On Padres and Abby. Javi and I will be talking about everything that's happened this week with regards to the labor meetings that only lasted 15 minutes, so exhausting for the owners, and talk about if we think things will start on time and what our overall thoughts are about everything that's happened. Next on Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stacey Gotsulias, co-host of Locked On Yankees, joined by my co-host Abbey Mastracco and our special guest, Javi Reyes of Locked On Padres. It is Friday if you're listening to Locked On Yankees, and sometime next week if you're listening to Locked On Padres. Welcome to the show. How are you both doing
today?
Welcome
to the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to the future. I'm doing very, very good, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I know it's been overdone, the jokes about how time doesn't exist anymore. But it really doesn't, to be perfectly honest with you. Everything kind of flies by. The Super Bowl was somehow like a week ago, depending on when everybody's listening to this. That was weird. And that just kind of happens. Weird commercials, everything. And now we're like back to baseball, and it's the same sort of discussion in a lot of ways, which is the MLB lockout. And despite how excited I usually would be about this time for baseball, we unfortunately are not being gifted the glory of a sport that is run by a sometimes and oftentimes incompetent and just mean league. Maybe not incompetent, because I think they know what they're doing, but yeah. I think just
they know what they're doing.
Just in terms of a sinister, they know what they're doing. Incompetent is right. I would say it's just kind of, it's just unfortunate, man. Like I miss baseball, and I don't usually say that, by the way. Usually by the time we get to September, I'm sick of it, and now I'm like, yeah, bring it back. I can't wait. This is gonna be so much fun.
Yeah. It's odd because we should be talking about guys showing up to spring training, what their condition is, what the weather is like.
Best shape of their lives.
Yeah, everyone's in the best shape of their lives. And although that's, that's been happening a lot sooner than years past. And we'll talk about that in a second. First, you can get both Locked On Yankees and Locked On Padres and every other Locked On podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere there's a podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Locked On Padres is also on YouTube. And if you have a smart device, you can tell it to play podcast Locked On Yankees or Locked On Padres. Yeah, the best shape of their lives thing feels like, before this year with the lockout and everything, it seems like it's getting earlier and earlier, because that used to be a goof, especially on Twitter and baseball Twitter, which I've been on for 13 years now. In the early part of it, before Twitter really became a cesspool, it was so much fun making fun of that, because we would try and bet when the best shape of his life posts would come out. And they became earlier and earlier in the year, where it got to like January where you'd find these guys in the best shape of their lives, that they were actually getting ready before spring training started, unlike the guys of years ago who would show up to spring training out of shape and use spring training to get into shape. So yeah, I love that. That's
spring
training
one of my favorite things. Where you got into game shape. Spring training used to be a lot of conditioning, and now that's that's why we're seeing a lot of the injuries too. Because now they're coming in and they're already throwing like almost up to their max velocity. Like guys have been working in the cages, like they've been hitting for weeks already. Like they're coming in amazing shape. I talked to Terry Collins about this a few years ago, and he was like, sometimes I just want to tell them to like go to the bar more before spring training, like back off the weights, back off the bullpens.
Yeah.
I mean, and I miss, because usually for me, it's the best shape of their life post. I always enjoy that. But for me personally, my favorite spring training bit is in my fantasy baseball draft lobby when that dumb kid freaks out because Greg Bird is hitting 465 and overdrafts him by 5 rounds. And I'm like, cool, I'll take David Ortiz. It's like, great, this is awesome, or whatever, right? Like, that's been always my favorite memory. And I always like betting on like which person's going to go absolutely nuts in spring training, who's getting bad in spring training and will fall. Manny Machado a couple years ago for my team. He was like batting 120, and people were like, I don't know, man. He looks a mess out there. It's like, this guy, it's spring training, man. Like, I don't even know if they're trying. I think they're just kind of hanging out, getting into the rhythm of things and whatnot. Not that I've been close enough to teams before or anything like that, but spring training does elicit some good memories, I think, a lot of times, and we're kind of being robbed of those right now.
Have you been able to go to spring training? I've only been once. I went in 2005. Yeah, I went to Tampa.
No, because for your listeners, I live in New Jersey, and despite covering the Padres, I don't know if I could make it to San Diego that easily, I guess. Although I am planning a trip for March 31st. So everybody root for the season to start on time. Because if that happens, I literally will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm basically bi-coastal most of the time.
Meanwhile, I haven't been on a plane since 2010. Yeah, 2010 was the last time I was on a plane. So I think I might have to, meditate the next time I go on a plane, because I may have a panic attack because it's been so long since I've been on one. Or I might just take a train somewhere instead of taking a plane. But yeah, spring training is fun, especially when the weather cooperates. The weather did not cooperate the first night that we got there. It rained. So the first spring training game that I was ever supposed to go to got rained out, and I was very disappointed. Then the game we ended up going to, it was 55 and windy in Tampa, and 55 to native Floridians is really cold. And they were dressed as if it was
iguana weather.
Yes, it is. And it was, yeah. And they were dressed as if a blizzard was about to happen, which I thought was the funniest thing ever, being from New York and also going to school upstate where it snowed from October to May. And I was just laughing at these people who looked like they were walking through a frozen tundra when it was 55, 60 degrees out in Florida. So yeah, I recommend to all the listeners and viewers, if you haven't been to spring training, try to go. Don't go when the games are actually being played, because I would be bored if I was just watching guys.
Don't go for pitchers and catchers.
Yeah, no. I think I would be bored by watching
workout.
guys.
Go once the game starts. I mean, for me as a reporter, like, you're there 2 solid months. Like, some of them like rotate in and out. I didn't work for a paper that had to rotate in and out. Like, I was lucky if I got 3 days off. Like, it was brutal. There was the first year I did spring training with the Mets, I did extra day off because my mom was working in Miami at the Food and Wine Festival. And like, I blocked that off, and because the Mets had an off day, like right before they did final cuts, I didn't have any days off. It was so brutal. It sort of like sucks your life away. At least you come back with a tan.
Yeah, well, see? Yeah. You got to measure the good with the bad. So no spring training. Meeting happened yesterday. Only lasted 15 minutes. And this isn't the first time that their meeting didn't last that long. And there are lots of jokes being made about it only being 15 minutes. The fact that they're not meeting again today, they're waiting till Monday. People are joking about how taxing it must have been to meet for a whole 15 minutes yesterday. But I believe from what I was seeing from Jeff Passan's timeline is that their plan is to meet as much as possible to make it so they can get something done before February 28th, because that is the point of no return. Because at that point, you would have 4 weeks of spring training, and you'd be able to have a viable amount of spring training in order for the season to start. So let's cross our fingers that that's going to happen before we get into that. Javi, Built Bar. It's time to talk about Built Bar.
What about it? It's my turn to talk about Built Bar?
Well, no, it's...
I mean...
Oh,
no, is it? Because I love Built Bar. You know how I feel about Built Bar. Built Bar is just the best protein bars in the land, man. Let me tell you. I message our group DM at least once a month asking if we're getting any. Asking if anyone has gotten any, because I love to hear people's thoughts, because there's so many different flavors and whatnot. They really are one of the great discoveries I've made since the world ended, to be honest with
you. Yeah. And have you had one of their puffs?
I have, yes, I have. I forgot. I think it was a lemon flavor. I'm forgetting right now.
Lemon cheesecake.
Those are really good too.
Yes.
Lemon cheesecake. There we go.
Yes. They have lemon cheesecake. They have churro. They have coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. And everyone listening and watching, these are going to be your new favorite things because they're also covered in 100% chocolate, just like the other Built bars. They're low calorie, high protein. You can replace your candy bars with them, and they're actually better than a typical candy bar. And if you go to the site, you can see just how good they are for you. Regular Built bars, mint brownie, coconut, almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious. New flavors are coming out all the time. And if they have a flavor that they think that, might be a good thing, they'll make it for you and it'll be delicious and it'll be good. So go to built.com, use our promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Again, that's built.com. And the promo code is LOCKED15. Thank you once again for making Locked On Yankees and Locked On Padres, your first listen of the day. Let's discuss this. I'm annoyed that the meeting only lasted 15 minutes, and I'm annoyed that there's not more a sense of urgency, it seems, on the owner's part, and it feels as if they're talking a lot and trying to make it seem, we said this last Friday, we predicted that everything that Rob Manfred said last week was going to set it up where if the meeting didn't go well last Saturday, people could blame the players. And that almost happened, but not quite. People are still, the majority of the people I know are rightfully blaming the owners because
sort of.
They're the ones who locked them out. They're the ones who can end this. Right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, right?
They can be the ones to be like, all right, we'll open things up and we'll negotiate as things are happening. They didn't have to really lock things out. And that's just what's making me laugh, is they're making it seem as if the players are the bad guys. But it's like, no, the players didn't strike. This isn't a strike. It's a lockout.
Like, there are still a lot of people who are thinking it's a strike, though.
I know. And that's what's bothering me. I don't understand why people don't understand the difference between a strike and a lockout all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what they do, right? Like that's part of the messaging. That's why Manfred comes out, at least from my approximation, and says like, yeah, we're hopeful to get a deal done before spring training happens, because they want to get ahead of it, because they know spring training is going to be delayed, as we talked about all of our favorite memories and whatnot before. And they know that, but they want it to be like, oh, we were hopeful, and then this weekend things just didn't go right, which kind of it associates blame to the other side, which is kind of what they've doing, whether it be the whole mediator. Remember that saga, the whole mediator saga, when that happened at one point? You have just various sort of tiny things, and people really, I don't want to say fall for it, because I think that's a little bit mean. I think that there is a sense of, I understand fans who watch this and go, hey, what the heck, man? Like, this is sport. But and I've seen a lot of people throw around like the millionaires arguing with billionaires sort of arguments, which I get. But at the same time, I think that it is actually somewhat remarkable how, like, you're not rooting for Steve Cohen to play baseball. You're rooting for Jacob deGrom to play baseball. And it's kind of incredible, like, what through so many different outlets, through so many different ways and mediums that that the public has been convinced that it's like not in your interest to just root for the players that you're rooting for and root for a corporation / team. And I think
capitalism, baby.
Yeah, that's what's happened. And, it's because another capitalism thing Jeff Passan tweeted about was the boneless wing take, which honestly is shouts to Jeff Passan for scorching takes that I often find to be incredibly entertaining. Capitalistic pigs tried to be clever, he says, and that they're just chicken nuggets, which is honestly open, like eye-opening. I don't know why I didn't think of it that way, to show you how much messaging plays this. I honestly, yes, before that tweet, didn't realize, like, oh yeah, wait, it's literally the same thing. I just ordered Buffalo Wild Wings for the Super Bowl for myself, ordered like 75 boneless wings. Yeah. But like, it just goes to show you that sometimes messaging and advertising and just the way you message things, no matter who you are, like, it can really alter the message. And I think in this case, a lot of people have been, looking at this and saying, hey, what the heck, man? Like, for the love of the game, man, and all that stuff. For the love of the game is one of my favorite things. And some players have said that before too. Shout out Kyrie Irving, who's like, why aren't we, I just want to play basketball. It's like, okay, you can go do that. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's fine. Like, you should get paid for your worth. Generational, genetic lottery, unbelievable, work hard players who made it to this level. And I think that, yes, it's easy to look at a Manny Machado for my team or a Giancarlo Stanton and be like, wow, players are making more money than ever. but that's not really how it shakes out, especially when it comes to minor leaguers and, minimum salaries and arbitration. There's so many areas that don't really, that just, there's so many areas that the unit itself.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry. I keep interrupting. Our connection's weird. Yeah.
We know that salaries are down. We know that the minor leagues are not minor league at a livable wage. And, this whole for love of the game thing. Well, these players need to make sure that they can take care of that they can earn enough care of themselves and their families while their window of opportunity is still allowed. Like while they still have a window of opportunity, like these careers don't last forever. You end up retiring in your 30s. And then what? You made $700,000 a cup for a couple of years because you were just a fringe, utility infielder. This is not millionaires and billionaires fighting as much as a lot of people want to think it is, because it's easy to look at those big salaries and have sticker shock and be like, I work $50,000. I get paid $50,000 a year and I'm happy to get paid that. That's not what this is. That's not what this is at all.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people say,
utility guys.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody is making $1 million. Not everybody's even making close to that. There's a lot of, these are big rosters. These are big 40-man pools. And, there are players right now who are trying to gauge the markets overseas at all. So there is, player assistance fund that's going to some players who probably would have been contracts with Major League Spring Training and invitations, but they're trying to gauge the market in Japan and in Mexico to see what their opportunities could be, because they're not making any money right now and they're getting an assistance stipend. Well, the best way for them to bolster they've got families over here, and it's not. I hate seeing that when people are like, for love of the game, millionaires fighting. That's not what this. There are so many more layers to this that not everybody understands, and there are so many more people involved with the game than people making hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, I know I've talked about my friend on this podcast who's having, fertility issues, and her husband doesn't have a contract right now. What are they supposed to do? She's got some serious medical issues, and he doesn't have a contract. They're getting money from the assistance fund, but where's their future? What are they doing? What is he doing? Is this over? Is baseball over for him? Does she need to go get a job? These are human beings who make the same sort of decisions about their future and their finances as we do.
Yeah, and you're rooting for those people. Like, I just, that's the crazy part. Like, how do they do this? You ever just like look at your Twitter feed and like, how did they do this? How did they convince you that like rooting for the New York Yankees logo is more important than, I don't know, the guys playing? Like, that's why you watch the sport. You know what I'm saying? And hey, look, by all means, Hal Steinbrenner, if you want to play baseball and you're good at it, go ahead. You can't, because these are freak athletes and, like I said, the genetic lottery and all that stuff. But it's just kind of, it's a lot of that though, and they like to use the, well, Bryce Harper just signed for this much, Fernando Tatis Jr. just signed for this much. It's like, all right, so you had to have been the best person in your hometown that probably has ever been produced. Then you had to be the best person at the high school that high school has ever produced. Then you had to have gone to college and been one of the college players that place has ever produced. And then you had to go to the minor leagues to be one of the best minor leaguers in all those systems and stuff in that. And then maybe finally you'll be one of the 15 guys who absolutely made it big. Guess what? The lottery, like, I don't get me wrong, the lottery doesn't have high chances. It's kind of like, it's just, people aren't seeing the full picture. There's so many more 700K people, bullpen arms that make their debut for a little bit. And don't get me wrong, if that's good money, like, obviously you're doing very well when you're making that type of money compared to a lot of other people. But I just don't understand that people aren't looking at, people who are signing office papers or whatever the heck owners do, and they're saying, that's the thing I want to root for, man. That's why I go to the ball game. I can't wait to see this. I think that and then of course you have the whole aspect of the, that this is a losing investment, which is, I don't know. I don't even know where to start with that, right? Like, because there's so many different areas of that. It's like, okay, then why do you own a baseball team, right? And I know Jeff Passan. Yeah. On top of that, just being blatantly not true that these aren't investment money makers. Maybe they aren't making 300% of a profit. Maybe they're making 220 or whatever the heck, right? Like it's something like that. Like I'm not a super business person, but I think that that's kind of the issue you run into is people being just saying because you're not making a giant investment. And that's just patently kind of false, to be honest with you. And I know Jeff Passan tweeted yesterday, saying there are owners that really do care about the game, but there's also a lot of them that just say investment, nothing else. And then there's a lot of others that are like, I like having this trophy. I like walking in the room of Succession and talking to Logan Roy and being like, well, I actually own the Boston Red Sox. So I can, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of an unfortunate reality of things. Shout out Succession, man. Great show.
No, you were just talking about owners. You were just talking about owners liking trophies. And one thing I took away from the Super Bowl is the fact that they give the trophy to the owner first, even though the owner didn't play the game. And, football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. And you can find all of the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next coach or next fired coach is going to be on betonline.net, which is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC, right down to Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Is that not the most annoying thing when they give the trophy to the owner first? It's like these guys just killed themselves.
That's a great point.
For how many minutes? That's a great
point. Yeah,
and the owner's like,
that's a great
woo.
Point. Also, that was an iconic transition, Stacey. Well done. Just well done. Applause. I mean, that was just fantastic, man. Are you kidding me?
I try. Now, speaking of betting, are we betting that anything's going to happen this next week? And are we going to see baseball starting on time?
I guess that's the big question, right? I was mentioning before that, actually to go to San Diego and hopefully be here for that. As we just lost Abby for all the YouTube viewers and whatnot. Hopefully she'll be back, so I'm stalled for a little bit. That, I'm hoping to plan a trip. I'm going to be in San Diego for when opening day would be. And I've never seen a Padres game. Maybe when I was young, my parents loved doing this thing where when I was 1 year old, they loved to go around the world. And then when I was sentient enough to understand anything, they were like, oh, no more vacation. So that was great. But I'm going to be there around that time, March 31st. So I have more of a vested interest for it to start on time. And I guess that's the big thing, right? Where I just don't trust baseball. I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago with your favorite person that I won't name on air. And I was listening to it, and he was basically like, look, it feels like and this is a point I think you would agree with too, which is since 1994, 1998, around that time, it feels like baseball's message to people who are trying to get into it is it's screw you. It's in a variety of ways, whether that be lockouts, whether that just be not maybe adapting and figuring out how to figure out arbitration and stuff like that, and making it that guys are getting paid for 9 years for $400 million instead of the NBA where the teams change around, or unwritten rules where it's okay, now it's baseball seems to actively all the time be we're going to find the area that you guys are going to hate. And we're going to just extrapolate blackouts, right? It just seems for people who are trying to like baseball, they're no, screw you. Sorry. I've compared them to Nintendo a lot of times in the gaming space because Nintendo has done a lot of anti-consumer things over the years. They released this Nintendo 64 Classic or NES Classic, and I think they made 1,000 of them when it came out for the world. And they were like, oh, wow, we sold out so much. It's no, you didn't. Everybody wants to play the NES games remastered on this cute little console. Everyone wanted it. And they do all these, they act like they're in first place. Baseball, I think, is what I'm getting at, right? They act like they're the ones that can kind of afford when they should be the ones. I tweeted about this. They should be the ones doing the Nickelodeon slime thing. They should be the ones having the NBA does an all-star draft where the players, you have LeBron James and Kevin Durant picking the players. They should be the ones doing all these quirky little things. And instead, we're doing a lockout. It's that.
Right.
That's just what baseball culture is unfortunately like.
Yeah, Abby.
Well,
we were just talking about how it seems since we were joking about how since like the past strike and around 98, like ever since then, baseball is basically just like to new baseball fans, like not welcoming and not changing things really either. I mean,
but that's always been baseball. Baseball's never wanted to change, and there are so many purists in the game who don't think that it should change either. I mean, go sit up at go sit at the top of Yankee Stadium, and you'll find a lot of people who are, well, back in my day, but back at your day is not relevant anymore. I'm sorry, it's not. What's relevant now is Gen Z and reaching them and streaming deals. And I know that people are throwing fits over, not being able to find the game on cable or with your bunny ears antenna, but Gen Z can find it on streaming. So we need to start catering to younger audiences, and baseball's never been good at that. And that was a genius move by the NFL to start doing the Nickelodeon thing, because we know
how did baseball not do this? It's incredible. How you guys not doing this?
I get it. I work in hockey where like they just continually shoot themselves in the foot, and the whole thing is, if you haven't been an original Six fan from the start, then like we don't want you. But then they're expanding to new markets, so like you can't have it both ways.
Right.
Vegas has been a huge success, but you can't say that like it only counts if you were a fan in Chicago, Detroit, and Montreal. Like you cannot have it both ways. You're not going to. You're just contradicting yourself.
Well,
Lockouts or blackouts, not lockouts. Man, I'm so used to saying the word lockout. Blackout, I think, are detrimental to. I think it's like a conspiracy theory to like make everybody sign up for cable. And I don't have cable. I use streaming. I live with other people who don't want cable, so I'm not going to force it on them, and I can't afford it on my own. Like I can't say like, oh, we're getting cable, but you're not paying. Like I'm paying for it, so you can't watch it. Like that's not how that works. So I have streaming, and I've had to figure out, for better or worse, how to use it. And like blackouts are. It really prevents people from like watching. It prevents people from seeing your product. And you want a lot of eyes on your product, especially for big games. And we do this with the NHL all the time, because the NHL should not have, like, that's the one league that really needs to drop their blackout restrictions, like immediately. Like they don't know how to market games. Hockey doesn't know how to market itself, period. I mean, putting the women's gold medal game at 11 p.m. Eastern on a streaming service, like, no offense, I know I just said I use streaming services, but like that's not prime. That's not how you get a lot of eyes on the game. That's not how you grow the game. That's not how you reach new audiences.
Right.
So I think that I guess that baseball can make a case for still having the blackouts, because those owners want their money, and we know that, and it's not good for the game, but like it's a part of the broadcast deals. I get it. Sure, maybe you could make the argument that like baseball and hockey are in danger of being relegated to like niche sports. And if that's the case, then you drop the blackout restrictions and you start doing things like you start trying to appeal to younger generation by doing Nickelodeon slime. I don't know, go to Disney Channel, do something with. What do the kids watch these days? Harry Potter? I don't know.
Well, I think that the
whole
Wizarding
Players
World
game.
Thing,
what the heck?
Yeah, I think the whole Players Weekend was a step in the right direction, where you gave the guys the ability to put their nicknames on the back. They're wearing different uniforms. I know some of the purists were annoyed by that, but I say to them, as I'm wearing a Yankee hat with flowers, just to annoy people. Oh, my father was alive and he saw this. Oh my God, he would not be happy, but he's not here, so I can wear this and I can buy hats like this. But I love Players Weekend, and it feels like they're so much more relaxed during Players Weekend, and they actually genuinely have a really fun time with those uniforms. And
the players really liked it, the nicknames and everything. The players really enjoyed it.
And the Field of Dreams game, I mean, that was great. And they need to do more things like that to reach out to, I mean, I know that there were a lot of people complaining that it was Field of Dreams that came out when I was in high school. It's an old movie. Old people like that movie, but that game was incredible. And if they can mimic that in a different way, like we were talking on here about like maybe doing a League of Their Own theme or other movie themes for baseball movies.
I want Bull Durham.
Yeah, Bull Durham would be a fun one too.
Do the Twilight random field in the forest for all I care. Like it's just and you're right. Like the Field of Dreams thing, a lot of people were getting into debates that movie actually sucks, dude. And it's like my thing was
I personally don't like the movie, but the visuals of the game were great.
Right.
Yeah, like literally that alone. And I love how that baseball's like, let's put in the Cubs and the Reds next year to like rebuilding teams. That's fantastic. But like I do wish that they did more stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it would be so much more fun, getting weird. And I really think that the All-Star voting thing, like the NBA, sure, there's going to be, it's not that like thrilling of a television event to watch, but
It's
whole
fun,
like
though.
Kevin Durant not picking James Harden thing, like that becomes a giant meme and bit, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
Who knows what would happen
Yeah.
with baseball? And also with baseball having its marketing problem for, being more localized, people like say it's Mike Trout is the captain of one team and then Tatis is the captain of another. Mike Trout picks someone like Nolan Arenado. How many Yankees fans have never seen Nolan Arenado play? You know what I'm saying? So that's like just a tiny way to improve things. And I mean, it sucks because the talent's there. I have never been more nervous watching a home run derby in my life and more excited. And that's what happened this year with Shohei Ohtani. So there's a lot of like talent to market there. It was a blast. And then he was messing up at the beginning, clearly just nervous. And then he just started hitting moonshots and it was awesome. And it was like, that was great television, right? So I think that baseball has the talent at least. And there is ways to fix this, even if
that's another problem I talk about all the time. The fact that you only see Shohei Ohtani in All-Star games. You only see Mike Trout in All-Star games. You barely see them on national television. And they're two of the best players to come along in how many years in the sport? Not that that's the fault of baseball overall. It's the fault of their ownership. But there needs to be, maybe this has to do with blackout restrictions. Maybe they should make it so more people can watch Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout day in and day out all over the country if they wanted to. I don't know how they would do that, but something like that needs to be done. Marketing needs to be better. Like, the Let the Kids Play press conference with all the guys answering questions. That was a fun promo for baseball, and they need to do more stuff like that and not have a lockout.
Exactly. I think, and I will say that I think that the unwritten rules, which I alluded to earlier, I feel like we're kind of getting away from that. It feels like it's more of a split now, where like there are some people who are like, it's like a little bit like, I feel like we're starting to see that people are like, this is literally objectively stupid. And I think and my player Tatis was kind of like one of the first guys that I noticed that almost unilaterally, everybody was like, this is dumb. Like, who cares? Like, why he hit a home run? Like, it just doesn't matter, because he was so likable and so new and so young and in the game that I think that helped. Unlike, say, a Carlos Gomez from years ago, right? Like when someone like that did it, that not everybody knew about and not necessarily the most everybody's favorite player, I think that was one thing. And now it's just like, you know what? I want Javi Baez bat flipping and like at the picture for him basically sacrifice fly. Like it's great. Like, I thought that was so fun. I don't care.
I like when guys flip their bats after a walk. They'll walk, they'll flip their bat over. It's like great.
Unless you're Brandon Nimmo and then you sprint as hard as you can to first base.
Yeah. Like they need to make baseball more fun in that way. I feel like there are certain things that they do that make baseball not as fun. As much as they think it's fun to put the runner on second in the 10th inning, it's not fun. It's not when you're watching your own.
I strongly disagrey.
I don't mind that. There's more action for one. But also, like, somebody who's like,
you're wrong, Stacey.
As somebody who is like I wrote a column on this last year for Bleacher Report, and I don't think I've had like a more divisive thing that I've written. And I've written about the intersection of like race and social issues. Like, I've written a lot about some controversial topics, but this one, like the Ghost Runner,
that got
like
people fired up. Yeah.
Controversial thing that I think I've written.
I don't mind watching other teams have that in their games, but when my team is involved, I don't like it. But watching other teams have that happen, sure, it's great, it's fun, but no.
You know how many times I've had to sit there and watch a 14-inning game where nothing happens? Like, wow, that game was so bad. They just played it twice.
Yeah,
Like,
and especially like a lot of those games, like, you have the occasional game where a team will tie it up in the bottom of the ninth, it'll go to extra innings, but you also have a lot of those games where the teams don't score from like the sixth inning on, and then it
yeah,
goes to like
and
14 or
I know.
15 innings.
so, and look, I get it. Like, look, it might
Happened with
just
my team.
you might just tie somebody up. You might just tie the game up with a couple sack bunts. That's fine, whatever. But at least then there's like they're trying to win and not just trying to lose, or not just like swinging for the fences and trying to end the game. Like a couple years ago, Curtis Granderson told me he wants to see like the equivalent of a shootout in the NHL. He wants to see like a home run derby after 12 innings. So like,
That
okay,
I
maybe
would sign up for.
maybe if you don't like the Ghost Runner in the 10th, then like maybe move it to like the 12th or the 13th. Like maybe play a couple innings, and you don't have to use it in the playoffs. It's like hockey. Like I've talked to so many guys in hockey who say, I don't like the shootout. I think it's stupid to end on a skills contest. However, I don't see the point in just beating each other up, playing 5 overtimes for a regular season game between like Ottawa and a bad, like the Devils, like two bad teams playing 5 overtimes for nothing, for nothing. And so
Look,
the
I'm
shootout
all for it.
and North American sports don't like ties. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want ties, then that's the only other alternative, is to have a shootout or something like that. Baseball's never going to go to a tie format. So extra innings, but like,
Unless it's an all-star game in Milwaukee in 2002, then it's a tie. But other than that,
do we really want to see Kansas City and Detroit playing 27 innings on like a 14-degree night in early April?
right? No.
There are 162 games. Sorry that 15 of them might have something different. You fake progressive fans. I'm so mad at you, Stacey. This is great.
I said
I
don't mind it when other teams have it happen, but when my own team has it happen and I see how they lose when the runner is on second base, I do not like it.
Get out of this. The Yankees did not know how Yankees, because the problem with the Yankees was that they just tried to out hit all of their mistakes, and you can't always do that. Yeah. And so the Yankees were like, we're just going to, out hit the defensive mistakes that we make, because they can't field a sack bunt.
Right. So it's like, no, I don't. No, I don't like it when my team's involved. Other teams, yes. And I say this about the wild card game as well. When my team's in it, I absolutely hate it unless they win it. But if other teams are in the wild card game, it's the best thing ever. I have the best time watching it. I love it. So
I think with the Ghost Runner, you move it to the 12th inning. You start a Ghost Runner in the 12th inning, and you get rid of it in the playoffs. But that's an easy way. There's
playoffs,
0 point. There's 0 point to these guys playing all night, especially like two teams that have no chance of even doing anything in the postseason, and it's like 20 degrees in April. It's just it's pointless.
Yeah.
Like, player safety has to
Padres
be a
had the
concern
16 inning one.
Yeah.
That I stayed up for against the Dodgers. And I felt like I was on drugs and comatose by the end, and I wanted to die. It was 4:30 in the morning. Oh my God. Don't get me started.
I tell this story all the time. The last game that I wrote about for Baseball Prospectus was the Dodgers-Red Sox game that went 18 innings in LA in the World Series. And I filed that story at 6 a.m. Eastern. I was delirious. I didn't even know how to spell the word "the." I just didn't know what was happening. Yeah. It was so bad. I was like, this is awful. So in that case, yes.
You start rethinking basic words, like the word basic. You're like, wait,
you see certain words repeated too much and they don't look like they're spelled correctly. And you're just like, yes. Is that how you spell "the"? What? It's... This is a writer thing. So if you're not or if you're one of those people like me who procrastinated in high school or no, college and waited till the night before to do a 20-page paper, you get delirious by, 15 pages in and is this how you spell sure? Is this how you, it's that kind of a thing. Yeah. So my bet is, I don't know. I'm not feeling optimistic. Yeah. I'm not feeling optimistic, but I feel like the season's not going to start on time, but I feel like it's not going to be one of those, it's not starting till May 15th sort of things. I think it might be delayed just by a teeny bit, if that makes sense. Maybe like a week or a week and a half, but nothing more than that.
Mm-hmm. For my sake, I hope not, because I'll be there. But I think for me, my view is just I would not be surprised if we missed any long amount of time. I'm not saying that's what I think, but I just think that you should be for all the reasons we just illustrated. This is a league that only just figured out that having pitchers hitting $120 every year is probably not great, and we should probably have another batter. Like, they usually are quite late to things, and they will find the way to, not win or what have you. So for me, not expecting. I am going to prepare myself for any type of long delay, even if it sounds like, maybe we might not miss too much and that baseball's has some momentum and they don't want to lose it. But that's just where I'm at right now.
How about you, Abby?
I'm not optimistic, and I'm not usually like pessimistic. I think we've talked about this. Like, I tend to be right in the middle and sort of keep it real. But I know, and I just saw that, I saw Pat Passon said that they are going to be negotiating over a series of days. They're going to ramp up negotiations, but I just think that there's too much distrust on both sides. The owners are protecting their bottom line. The owners think that the players are making them look bad. The players think that the owners are not negotiating in good faith. And I think I think we're going to miss games. I do. I think we're going to miss games. I don't know that I could put a date on when they're going to start, but I think that this is going to get more contentious, and it just seems that the owners don't want to budge on their bottom line. And if that's the case, the Players Association is already making concessions.
Right.
They've already dropped some of their. The owners are planning on them caving. And I think the players have already made so many concessions that they're not willing to cave at this point, even if it is just to play and get the game on the field, because you shouldn't have to work for, what you're not worth and for under your value. And it's just a mess. And I hope that when it does get solved, we consider what happened, how to prevent it, how to really fix all of these things in the future and start marketing the game better. Start, maybe some more fair, equitable practices in baseball. This has been a bad year for baseball culture. Even stuff yesterday with Eric Kay's case happening. Now we know how widespread opioid use is. We know about sexual harassment, sexual assault. This has been a really bad year for baseball. And the lockout is not going to solve every problem. It's going to get people, ending the lockout is going to get people back on the field. And once they're back on the field, we've got to figure out how to take this thing and make it better.
Yeah.
And I hope that this serves as a wake-up call that it does need to get better. There's a lot that needs to be fixed. And playing the game can just sometimes that can cover up for a lot of things. Winning covers up a lot of things. So I hope that when the lockout is over and the things are back on the field, people are sort of emboldened to or encouraged to change this thing for the better.
Right. Javi, thank you for joining us on the show today.
It was a blast. I loved. I know we've talked a bunch before, including about Brett Gardner being one of my favorite players and all that. And Abby, it was a lot of fun meeting you. Look, it's you gotta keep happy even when talking about these unfortunate topics. You know what I mean? When it comes to the sport we love being run in a league that we very much oftentimes do not love. And I think it's important to just keep the good vibes going any way you can.
Yeah. Let's try and end this on a positive note. It's Friday, people. Enjoy Friday. If you're listening to Locked On Padres, it's not Friday. I don't know what day of the week it is, but whatever day of the week it is that you're listening to this on Locked On Padres, I hope you're having a good one. But that's it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Abby, Javi, and I would like to remind you that you can listen to this show and Locked On Padres in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher. You can watch and subscribe to both shows on YouTube. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Bets. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans and spread the word about Locked On Padres. We'd all really appreciate it. So enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you all next week.